All right, let's do a walk around on the 1971 Jaguar E Type. The very end of the line for the six-cylinder 4.2 liter cars, right before they went to the V12. Um, and this is the last batch, as confirmed by the VIN number. I'll show you that later when I pop the hood. So this car, it's a driver quality car. You could call it. Uh, I'll show you some areas you could really take it to a higher level than that. I'm not going to do that because I've already put way more money in this car than I should have, and it'll just make me more upside down if I spend more. So the paint, apparently this is an older restoration, and the paint is actually held up very well, which is a good sign. Usually badness appears fairly quickly, and this one's doing pretty well overall. Now, I'll also put it on the lift at some point and show the underside. The biggest issue with this car is the rear apron has some rust. Maybe we can see it. There's a dent right there. I'll get a better view when it's up on the lift. But you can see a new stainless exhaust. There's there's a scratch right here if you can see it, a nick right there. There's little blemishes here and there. The top is basically new, I'll show that. You can see the seats are pretty tired. These have deflated. So it's easy to fix. I mean, I should probably, I might just do that. You just put new foam in them. But honestly, you can tell somebody's put the top up and down more than once without putting the seats forward. On this car, yeah, it's a weird design, but you have to fold the seats forward before you raise the top, or that happens. What else? The dash pad is actually not bad. I'm working on the glove box door. That's in a different video. Replacing the hinges. You can see somebody put an aftermarket stereo in it. Looks ridiculous, but I haven't done anything about it. Really, everything I've done has been basically under the bonnet, because it all involves engine and front suspension, which has all been thoroughly gone through. But I'll talk about that separately when I raise the bonnet and take a look at the good and the bad up there. So yeah, the interior could easily be redone to take this car to another level. Personally, I have enjoyed just driving it as is, because I can take this car anywhere and park it anywhere, and I don't worry about it. I mean, if somebody wants to add another little ding to it, okay. You know, it's fine. I'm not going to cry like I would if it happened to that car. I'm afraid of a bug hitting that car. This one, it's just fun to drive around. It's still it's still the same driving experience, and it's still the same number of people turning their heads and saying, ooh. So you can see a little blemish there. These window washers, this one's fine. That one needs to be tightened. They're kind of a pain in the butt to get to, so I haven't messed with that. Of course, this is where the Series 2s differ from the Series 1s, which is why the Series 1s are worth quite a bit more money. You saw the taillights in the back, which used to be really cool looking above the bumper, but small. But due to U.S. safety regulations, a lot of things happen to the design that's less appealing to most people. I've actually talked to some people who actually like these turn signals better. I don't. You can see they're much larger down low. They used to be above the bumper again. Obviously, the biggest difference that most people can tell between the two is that the Series 1 cars had the covered headlights, whereas these cars, they just have that chrome treatment and open headlights. I'll admit, covered headlights are really cool. The side markers obviously changed on the Series 2 cars. So over here, there's a scratch. There's a little dent down low. You got to kind of look for it. Let's see, anything else to point out? That's the mirror's a little loose. See, that's an easy fix. If I pull the door card off, I just haven't done that, and honestly, it doesn't bother me. So I have enough stuff to work on without adding to it. But again, as long as you don't look in the interior too hard, it's probably like a 10-footer, maybe 15. It's a good little driver. I've owned this car about 5 years now, and I had the intention of going. I had the intention of, after driving it for a while, to go ahead and refresh the old restoration, do the interior, fix some of these paint issues and dings here and there, replace that rear apron where the rust is, and I haven't done any of that, obviously. The rear apron's a real problem area on these cars because the rear tires just fling mud and stuff up in there. You can see it's just open, and you can hardly clean it out, and for that reason, personally, I wouldn't drive it in the rain if you can help it. Anyway, so I was going to go ahead and do the whole car, but like I said, the place I bought it from called it mechanically sound. If you've seen those words written in ads before, you know where I bought it from. But when I got into it, it didn't run well. The front suspension needed to be rebuilt, which was done. The power steering rack needed to be rebuilt. That was done. You can see the brakes were obviously replaced because you can see the caliper right there. And then the head started leaking. It started leaking radiator fluid. So we needed a head gasket, pulled the head. The studs holding in the head were rusty in the water chambers, which happens on these cars because the head studs actually go through the water jackets around the cylinders, and so they sit in coolant all the time, and it'll rust. And if you try to pull them that way and they snap off, then you really are going to be unhappy. So basically, a coolant leak turned into an engine rebuild, which, if you know these cars, you know that's not cheap. So all the money that was going to go into the interior and maybe get the paint freshened up went instead under the bonnet where nobody can see it. So if you get this car, you're getting one that is well ahead in terms of spending money on it. So someone can take it from here and still not be upside down. I took care of that for you. You can thank me later. All right, under the bonnet of the 71 Jag E Type, let's take a look at what we've got. Kind of a similar story in terms of cosmetics. You know, not bad, not bad, not great. It's again, this whole car is a driver quality car. I will point out, starting way up front, added cooling fans. The front suspension has been totally rebuilt. The power steering rack is basically a new unit. Everything's pretty tidy up here. The radiator has been completely recored recently, within the past couple of years. That happened when all the engine work was done. So cooling is not an issue. This car doesn't overheat. I will point out, as I said in the last video, we started out with a bit of a coolant leak. Well, more than a bit. It was leaving giant puddles everywhere. We did have to pull the heads to do a head gasket replacement. And when that happened, the heads were rebuilt. The pistons were pulled out, everything rehoned and re-ringed, and all the head stud gaskets were, or I'm sorry, all the head studs were replaced. As I mentioned earlier, the head studs in this car actually go down through the water jacket around each cylinder. They sit in coolant. They spend their life in coolant. They spend their life rusting because of the coolant. So all of that was done. You can see the heating system has all been redone. That's the power steering pump, obviously new hoses. Let's walk around to the other side. Okay, so over here we have new fuel lines. They've all been run. These Stromberg carburetors have been rebuilt. The ignition has all been replaced. As you can see, we have an electronic ignition installed on this car. I'll tell you, it runs better than it's ever run. A friend of mine who is a second generation British car repair guy, he worked for his dad in his dad's shop, and then he had his own shop, and he continues to work on British cars. So he went through this front to back on the engine, and man, he's got this thing running good. I mean, it's a pleasure to drive. One thing I'm debating about, this car does seem to leak oil from the timing chain cover in the front. My feeling is that those who rebuilt the engine, I think there's a gasket issue up there. I haven't tried tightening everything down because access is kind of an issue. What I may end up doing is taking the bonnet off and getting some access in there and potentially replacing that gasket. I mean, I know all British cars leak, I get that, but I don't know. This just seems a little more than what I want to put up with. So that may get done as well. But overall, I mean, mechanically, this is a very good car. I mean, I've pretty well shown everybody the faults, and I want to make sure I point out the good as well. Obviously, we're going to get this all cleaned up under here before it's sold, and again, I'm going to finish the glove box door hinge repair, which is ongoing. I'm getting close to putting that back on. So that's the deal under the bonnet. It's overall a pretty good story under here. I have a lot of confidence driving this car around. Like I said, I really was in no hurry to do anything about the body because honestly, it's not bad. It's a driver. Honestly, I enjoy driving a car like this more than a car like that because I worry driving a car like that. It's kind of perfect, and I don't want to mess that up. This car is not perfect by any stretch, so but it's good enough, and I don't worry driving this around, even though it is what it is. I don't worry about it. By the way, this is how you close the hood on an E-Type. I sit on it, and then I reach under here and close the latch, and that works just fine. Just a little tip. Alright, let's do a cold start, and this will be really cold because I haven't started it in a while. In case you're wondering, I find the easiest way to get in and out of these cars, put my right hand here, put my right leg there, and just swivel my butt right in the seat. So something I've learned, maybe a little recently, don't pull the choke out right away. Crank the engine a little bit to get the oil circulating before the car starts. Startup is when you do the most damage to an engine. Alright, that should be good. Let's pull the choke all the way out. Like that. And there you go. Like I said, this is a really cold start. As you can see, the battery is a little on the drained side because I have not started this car in probably 2 weeks. But it fires up nicely. It revs nicely. Let's get rid of some choke now. You don't want to leave that out long because you don't want more fuel going in than necessary. So since I'm not doing a driving video yet, I'm just going to sit here and let it warm up a bit and get the battery charged a bit. Oil pressure good. Somebody put another oil pressure gauge down here. I don't know, a different takeoff point in the engine. The clock even works. I had it rebuilt. It's now what do you call it, quartz, you know, movement. So that's all good. I'm telling you, this thing runs great at this point. I just wanted to show everybody the battery is up to normal. It took a few minutes, that was it. As you saw, the oil pressure was good. That was about 3,000 RPM. There's that. Water temp is climbing up. It spends its life in the normal range. As I showed you earlier, there's plenty of cooling going on up front. So there you go. And we have gas.